the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast, where I will sit down and converse with the superstars, the overachievers, the masters of our craft. Each episode will be a deep dive into their personal philosophies, their habits, the tools they use, and the secrets to not only their success, but overcoming failure as well.
First, find somebody you can mimic, then find somebody you can stand, and then try to focus on one style until you master that style.
So if you say I can't do something, well, you're absolutely right. But if you say you're going to, you're absolutely right with that too.
People say that you shouldn't define yourself by your work. That is not true.
You know what Dave Farley does when he's, lucky enough to be at the World Equestrian Games? I'm watching other people work.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that enough.
This podcast is for all of you out there who share my passion for the job and the desire to always improve. These interviews will put you in touch with the inner workings of the role models we all want to emulate. So let's get to it.
There's only so many hours in a day, and it's a matter of what you do with them.
Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all doing well out there. Time has flown by this summer. I can't believe we're already well into August. Almost every farrier I have spoken to has been busier this summer than in years previous, even despite all the COVID stuff going on. This makes me all too aware of the potential burnout for some of us. So please remember to take the time to maintain your connections with friends and family, and try not to let other people's demands get in the way of your valuable personal time. Remember, you're not a machine, and even machines need downtime and maintenance. And that's the end of my rant. Today I'm speaking with Mehak CF. Many of you will know Mike because of his presence on many of the Facebook Farrier groups, including Farrier Q&A. As you will hear, Mike has had a unique journey on his way to becoming a farrier, and a lot of the knowledge he acquired along the way has been quite useful in his day-to-day work. Mike resides in the same province of Ontario as I do, and through many years of attending the same clinics and conventions, I've grown to really respect the man for his humble dedication to the craft and the industry as a whole. Whether in person or through text, I have never known someone who can make a joke, often self-deprecating, an average of about every other sentence. He truly is a riot to hang out with. It was an honor to be able to sit down and hear his story. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So I'm sitting here this evening with Mehak CF. This conversation has been in the works for a while. I was hoping to snag him for a day of trims too, but it's summer. It's busy.
Yeah, it's been a little bit crazy, but I am going to come do a trim day for you.
I look forward to it. I feel like my stomach would hurt by the end of the day.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Now, most people would be familiar with you through your presence on Facebook. What is it that inspires you to use that platform as much as you do?
Facebook is a good way to represent yourself in a controlled manner. So you kind of get to control how people see you. And my goal as a farrier in building a business is to demonstrate, sell my confidence. And I want my clients to think that I'm the person to go to ask hoof questions, and I want to be their expert. So Facebook is a good way to show your work, show the different things out there, and educate your clients kind of in a controlled manner. And I also think it helps when they see you as a normal person. So when you do make a mistake, whether it be on a horse or something happens and you miss an appointment, hopefully they do think a little bit before they just fire you. They feel like they have a more personal connection with you, and I think that helps as well.
Right. Yeah, because even though you are trying to portray yourself and you do curate it to portray yourself as somebody who's in the know, you also are very humble. In many posts, you admit to your humanity and imperfections.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want my clients to think I am perfect either, because then we're setting myself up for disappointment, and then I'm up for disappointment. So I want them to see me as human. But my goal also isn't for them to think that I'm the only good one or the best one, but I want them to think that I'm their best and confident, and I want them to be educated, but I want them to be educated by me or, in line with my theories. Because if you don't educate your clients, we're not living in a world where they can just, remain ignorant. If they want to know something, they're going to go find it. So rather than go on Google or ask their buddy, I would rather them get an answer from me than getting a random answer off the internet. So
yeah,
it kind of sets yourself up for an easier time.
For sure. And how do you find the time to do the posts that you do?
It depends. Obviously, a summer like this, there hasn't been as much because I've been busy, but I'll usually get an idea in my head and then decide like I'm going to take some pictures and work on a post and think about it all day. And then I will write it up that night or in between stops. It just depends. Lots of late nights thinking ideas. And then I have notes in my phone of posts I'm going to do.
Oh, really?
I might have a great idea for a post and I'll be working on a horse and I'm going to take pictures and do all this. And then I finish the job and I look at it, I'm like, no, I'm not taking pictures of this. So I'll save that little note and wait till I do something similar and then I'll make that post. So.
Right. Okay. So it is a concerted effort ongoing that you are writing material and coming up with concept.
Not much comes natural to me. I got to work at it. So.
No, that's interesting. I kind of have the same idea when it comes to the podcast. You're constantly thinking of new ideas. And
for sure.
So you had a unique start in this business in that you came to it from the other side as a rider, right?
Yeah. So I started at Woodbine Racetrack when I was 14. Never touched a horse in my life. Filling the pop machines. My mom worked there and got me a job there. Then I'd worked my way over to customer service by the time I was about 15. But because I was so small working at a racetrack, everybody said, well, you should be a jockey. And, you see all these guys out there and they're riding horses and they're making all this money. I'm like, yeah, I should be a jockey. I want to make all this money. So then I just started on that. Got a job as a hot walker, which is just cooling the horses out after they train. And I did that for a while I was finishing high school. I worked there. I would basically walk horses for free all morning on weekends, and then they would let me ride the pony occasionally, which is the horse that takes the other horses to the track. And I kept doing that. And then when I finished high school, I said, like, I gotta make an effort at this. I've been taking riding lessons, and I didn't listen to my parents, which was probably a mistake, and went to the racetrack full time, went to the backside, went to the HPPA, which is their association, and said, I'm looking for a job as a hot walker. And they gave me a barn, which was Roger Atfield, who was one of the top trainers in Canada. And I got a job as a hot walker. Didn't really know what I was doing still. Was getting thrown around by the horses and dragged around. And then there was a guy in the other barn, Big Al, who kind of showed me what to do and taught me maybe how to do things more efficiently. And that was kind of the start. And I just kept working away at that. Went down to Florida with them as a groom. By then I was grooming. They were going to teach me how to ride down there. And I spent a winter in Florida and got to ride the pony a bit, but I was not progressing where I wanted to. And one of the guys at the barn had a friend in England that ran one of the racing schools. So he set me up there. So I went over to England, went to the Doncaster School of Racing and learned how to gallop and do all that. Eventually worked my way to becoming a jockey and did that for quite a while.
Now, quite a while being how long?
I think I rode my first race when I was 19, and I rode my last race when I was about just into my 30s.
Wow.
So.
And what made you make the change?
Racing's pretty cutthroat, and I did lots of different capacities. I rode quarter horses and thoroughbreds. I was a jockey for a long time. I also exercise rode in the winters. I wouldn't race in Florida, but I'd go down and gallop in Florida. Racing was never my passion. My passion was, I liked galloping. I liked making those connections with the horses, bringing horses along. So racing was never my deep passion or obsession. Weight was always tough for me. I mean, as a jockey, as an apprentice, I was, 109 pounds. And then once I was a journeyman jockey, I was like 113 pounds, which now I'm 160 pounds, and I could definitely lose a few, but being down that weight is definitely difficult. So I wasn't enjoying that. And then I was really good at getting hurt. So the last race I rode, I fractured my humerus pretty bad. I had to get surgery on my arm, and I had nerve damage in my hand. I was in the hospital for a few days. The trainer came, got his silks from the nurse's station, left, never said a word to me.
You're kidding.
And I was looking at being off for a long time, and I'm like, this is just not for me. I need to find something more stable. And with, being a jockey, you don't know when your next check is going to come. You might win a race and you're doing really good, and then people just kind of fall out of favor. You hit some bad luck and they start using other people, and there's nothing you can do to make yourself a better rider. You just have to keep going and hope better horses come along, and you might get hurt and then you're not making any money. So yeah, I wanted something different, and I wanted away from the racetrack life because it's 7 days a week, 65 days a year. You go where they tell you. They'll tell you we need you in Florida in 3 days, and you got to get your stuff together, and it's time to go to Florida for the winter. And
right.
Then they say you're going to Kentucky for a couple weeks, and that's where you're going. Like you're kind of at their mercy. And at the time, I didn't realize this, but you're convinced that you can't take sick days, you can't take days off, and you push and push and push. And later on, you realize that if you had taken those sick days, then you still would have had a job. But yeah, it runs you that life. It's a pretty tough life, and I was looking to get away from it.
Right. So what were your first steps in pursuing this career?
My first steps were trying to find some people to ride with. So I rode with a few people. I rode with some racetrack platers. I rode with Kevin Alcock for a summer, just trying to get experience and learn new things to see if it's something I did want to do. Talk to other shoers, and I just decided, this is what I want to do. And it's something I'd always thought about. I'd always been fascinated by the trade. But once I spent the summer with Kevin, I decided this is what I'm going to do. And I went off to school. And
okay. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Cornell in New York.
Right. And that's a 3-month course, right?
Yeah, I think it's about 3.5 months.
Right. And then when you got back, did you work with somebody else?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. My first day back from school, I had jobs. I went and worked with Peter Yento a couple days and Greg Brett for 2 days, the two of them, and was able to work for both of them for several years and get experience and build a book on the side. And
cool. It sounds like you found some good mentors.
For sure, yeah. And it's funny because you leave school with these notions about what you want to be. And I left school because Cornell, you're in the vet department. I'm like, I'm going to be a therapeutic shoer, and this is the life. And then you start to ride with people, and you're like, well, maybe that's not what I want to do. And you get to see different ideas, and you just kind of evolve from there. And
right. Now, I've noticed that you've mentioned a couple times in your Facebook posts this general lack of horsemanship in the farrier trade. And as somebody who was raised up in it and did learn a lot of that sort of horsemanship stuff, what are some of the things that you think we should know? Like some actual take-home points that would help people out?
There's so much that I learned from the racetrack. And with the racetrack, you're put in a position like no other. When I was younger and galloping, I would get on anywhere from 15 to 25 horses a day. And they're different horses. Every month they might cycle over, and you're breaking babies. So you have a lot of chance to try things. And since you're working with them 7 days a week, you learn pretty quickly whether what you're doing works and what you're willing doesn't work. And that experience can't be replaced. And there's a lack of horsemanship, I think, in just the horse business in general. And I don't think it's anyone's fault per se, but it's, all different levels have different problems. And the higher levels, you have kids that are taking lessons on horses and they never learn to tack them up. And at the bottom level, you have kids that are never getting a chance to have, a proper coach and proper guidance. The biggest thing for me is just listening to the horses and approaching each one as a unique horse. I try to approach them all with confidence and nothing's going to go wrong because they know we're having a bad day before we even know we're having a bad day.
Yep.
They'll let us know. And it happened more when I was galloping, but it happens shoeing too. There's days where you just need to call it quits because you're worked up and every horse you get under gets more and more worked up. And then pretty soon, you're just asking for trouble, and it doesn't help anybody. But definitely, listening to the horses, it's tough because you need to be able to make corrections quickly and accurately, but also doing it without making a scene, because every client is different on what they think is an acceptable amount. And this is probably not a good thing, but the racetrack, you get pretty good at looking over your shoulder before you
right.
get a horse to straighten up. And there's some barns where, I won't touch them. And there's other barns where, you might give them a little, nudge or something just to get their attention. One of the things, since I do so many off-track thoroughbreds, actually two things. One is sometimes having the owner not there or go stand somewhere else. And a lot of the time you put the chain over their nose and all of a sudden all that racetrack training comes back to them and they just stand up. I'm not one to get after a horse or make a scene. Like, they can get sedation. I'm not a big fan at yelling and hollering at horses because I don't think it helps. And it usually just makes everyone in the barn think you're beating on horses. Like, it doesn't seem to help yelling at horses. If you can keep your cool, usually it helps.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever have those moments? It's a Friday, it's late, and you've been beaten up and tossed around by quite a few, and the last one is still playing that game. Like, how do you maintain your patience?
All the time. There's days where just want to lose it. I think if anybody says they doesn't have that, then they're either lying or there's something wrong with them. Because you're dealing with horses and they don't. It's like dealing with kids. As much as you want to lose your temper, it's usually not going to help. And if you start beating on a horse, then it's not for the horse. You're doing that for you. And I just try to tell myself that. But yeah, there's days, even in the middle of the day where I'm just losing my patience and I just go walk to the truck, go, get a drink, or you just need to walk away, because usually losing your temper doesn't make the situation better. It makes it worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you might not actually get the job done.
Well, that's it. And, I had a horse a couple months ago, and the owner didn't show up. The horse wasn't in. The last shoe wasn't there. It was missing all its foot, and it was just a mess. And I got one shoe on, and I couldn't get the other shoe on. And I barely clinched one foot. I put the horse back in the stall with one shoe on and left, and sent them a text a couple hours later when I cooled down and said, listen, this is not working. You need to come back and hold your horse and preferably have sedation. But yeah, it is definitely best to walk away. It's not good to be a hero. It's not in your best interest or the horse's best interest to say, I'm going to get this done no matter what, because there's a good chance you'll lose. And also, if you go into a barn looking for a fight with a horse, then you are going to find a fight with a horse. So I try not to get worked up. I do some horses that were given to me because other people didn't want to shoe them, and they're fine for me. But there are horses that are not good for me, and we have to sedate them, or I just say, listen, I don't get along with this horse, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the conflict of personality, just like humans. My
goal is to try to be able to approach that horse and get along with it. But by this time of the year when we're all, skating that line of burnout, there's times where I just don't have it in me to want to get along with that horse. And I'll just tell them maybe we should try someone else, or get the person that's working with you to trim it. There's other options, or tell them they need to have a vet come and sedate it. Yeah.
Right. Well, since we've kind of grazed past it a couple times in our conversation before and just now about the whole topic of burnout, and we are sitting here in the beginning of August, and it has been an unusually busy summer, although they typically are busy. It seems everybody I've spoken to, including yourself, is quite busy. What are some of the things that you do to thwart that burnout?
Time off is a big thing. Give yourself a weekend off. It's hard to turn your phone off, but it's huge. There's days where, not enough days, but there's days where I just turn my phone off or put it away and don't check it, because I know if I do go check it, I'm going to see some catastrophe that's just going to ruin my day or call me back in. Trying to find other things to do. I'm not very good at having tons of hobbies and outside activities in the summer, but just having something different to do, something to break the monotony of shoeing all day, every day, and dealing with clients and horses and all that. So, we do a lot of projects on our house and stuff like that. I'm definitely not the best at balancing work versus life. One thing I do is, I have shared custody with my daughter. So when I have her on weekends, I don't work. The odd major emergency I might go deal with, but for the most part, those are our weekends together and I won't work. And that does help me get a break from shoeing.
Inspiration for sure to do that. And during the rest of the time, like when you're not actually spending the time with your daughter, will you work straight through 7 days a week, or do you make sure to take a day?
I take at least a day. It depends how mad my wife is at me, whether I take 1 day or 2 days or try to sneak out in the morning and go deal with some problems. But I do try to take at least 1 day off. In the wintertime, I like to take even a weekday off and maybe work a weekend day or take an extra day off just to have, to get life sorted and errands and all that. And that helps too, because the whole reason we say we do this job, is for the horses and we love the job, but we also like to have that freedom. But then we also tend not to give ourselves that freedom.
That's right. Yeah.
It's hard for me to remember like, hey, I'm doing this so I can, take a weekday off or take a Friday off and go up north or just do my own thing. So.
And do you experience a sense of guilt when you do take those days sometimes?
Yes, I do. And it's something that I try to work on, but I'm just a very busy person. And even on the weekends, I need to be doing projects at home because I feel guilty if I'm not doing things.
Doing something. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
For sure.
Another thing that we were discussing before we started the interview was sometimes the complications of running into vets that might not see things maybe in the way that you do, or might not have the appropriate knowledge that we do and that we've acquired over attending a lot of clinics. I've seen you at pretty much every clinic I've ever been to, and I'm sure you've been to more. What are some of the ways that you try to overcome those situations?
It's tough because I want to work with my client and I want to get their horse sound, but I want to do so, one, without, going crazy, or, it's so frustrating to work on a horse for months chasing a soundness issue that is not that horse's issue. So I am honest with my clients, and I will, if I feel we're going the wrong direction, I will say like, listen, like this isn't working. What about a second opinion? Whether you want to get a second opinion from a farrier or a vet, but I think we need to try something different. And most of my clients I have a pretty good rapport with. And, if I suggest getting a second opinion, they're generally, if possible, gonna maybe send it to a clinic or something where they can get that second opinion. So I'm pretty lucky that my clients do have faith in me and trust in me. And I'm also very lucky in that sense where my clients, when they have a problem, will come to me first. Like if, I shoe a horse and it ends up sore 2 days later, I'm the first person they text. So I can usually do that damage control and try to avoid getting in those situations with vets that might make things more difficult. But there are times where you just have to go with it and, it's frustrating. But eventually, if you, communicate with the client, explain what you're doing, explain that you're doing what the vet wants, they'll start to see that maybe they should be looking elsewhere or listening to you.
Yeah.
It is a struggle, and certain areas are a lot tougher than other to work in because you're working with vets that maybe don't just do equine or don't do a lot of lameness. So it's not their fault. That's just not their area of expertise. And that's the best option for that client. And you just have to make the best of it.
Best of that situation. If they ask you to do something that you don't agree with, like you think will actually take you backwards or take the horse backwards as far as lameness, how do you approach that? Is it a walk away, or we'll try it, but...
It depends. First off, I am a sellout farrier. Like if they want aluminum shoes on, then let's do aluminum shoes. And if they want glue on shoes, then let's go get some glue. Like if they want something that isn't going to harm the horse, but I think is a complete waste of money and they're convinced they want it, then I've got no problem doing it. If it's something that's going to harm the horse, then I'm not going to do it. I don't have that happen too often. Usually if I say like, no, that's bad, then they listen to me. And most of the vets I work with, it just happens naturally and they say, this is what's happening. What do you think? And we come up with a plan and just do it. But there are cases where, the vet wants something crazy. And if I think it's going to harm the horse, then I'm going to walk away. And also, if I think it's going to make me look really bad, or I know the horse is going to end up at OVC in 3 weeks wearing this, then I'm going to say, like, no, I'm not putting that on. I suggest you use your vet's farrier. And image is a big thing for me, so I don't want to do stuff that's going to make me look terrible down the road, because I'm good enough at doing that without others' help. So
there's that humbleness that comes through on Facebook.
But yeah, I don't need any help doing, stupid things. So if I think it's gonna send the horse backwards, I'm probably gonna walk away, because you're just setting yourself up for failure, the horse up for failure. And even though it wasn't your fault, that's something that I took with me from the racetrack, you're gonna get the blame usually. So it's in your business's best interest to walk away. And there's lots more. We all do this, and I hate losing, but you have to be able to walk away.
Yeah. Well, and I guess we're going to veer back towards the social media aspect of things, because one of the ways that you are also present there is through some of the farriers only groups, where your clients won't even see that, but you participate in those quite a bit too. Now, what do you think is your reason for that?
I think it's great to talk things out. And I'm a very visual person. So when I'm working on a horse, I see things visually, not thinking like left foot, right foot. I have this picture in my mind. So when I talk things out or explain things, I think it helps me understand them better. And it's great to talk with all these farriers, and you see all these different methods, and you realize that maybe you could be doing this better, or just talking things through and seeing all this stuff. And it's also this sense of community, because, we work a lot, and, we have helpers and coworkers, but it's, I'm not working in an office building and stuff. So it's like having all these coworkers all over that you talk with and work with and bounce ideas off of. And the connections that I made out there, and, people I've met, it's great, because if I'm facing a problem at 10 o'clock at night, then I still have people that I can send a message to and say, like, help me get out of this mess, and they will give me some input. And it's just great to have that community, and it stops you from falling into, being an isolated farrier that lives in their own bubble. And, as long as you keep in mind that what you're looking at online is just one picture in time. And I do this too, you post a really nice job, but you're posting one picture over the, 24 photos you took of the one good foot. And, as long as you don't try to make, you should try to make every horse look perfect, but you realize that not every horse is going to look like a perfect job. But it's just great exposure in those farrier groups. And I feel like I've learned a lot and made some great connections, all over the world, really.
Right. And I know sometimes you'll actually run into people who have differing opinions, and you're not afraid to engage them on that too. Do you find that actually helps in some way with the learning?
I think so. Like, you have to be strongly convicted to what you're doing, but if you don't get challenged and challenge other people, then you're not going to improve off those methods. Like, I think it's good to challenge yourself, and, if you're doing something to a horse, then you should be able to argue for what you're doing and have a reason. Like, if you want to glue frisbees on the bottom of the horse's feet to make him run faster, that's great, but have a reason for doing it. Don't just do it because, you saw somebody else do it. Like, you should be able to stand up for what you're doing and talk it out and explain it and have a reason.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever had a situation where you were questioned on something and you kind of realized that, wait, I do really need to think about this?
Oh, all the time, yeah. I'm trying to think of something specific, but all the time someone say, well, why did you do that? I'm like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have, or maybe I need to think more about this. That's what's great about having, people in your truck too, is because they ask you questions, and now you have to have a reason for why you're doing that. And just some days it's frustrating, but it's good, because you should have a reason for everything you're doing.
Yeah. And sometimes I find, especially when I have people riding with me, that they'll ask that question and I won't have the answer right away, but it does have me think about it, because I'll dwell on that for days.
For sure.
Because I want to eventually have the answer for them. I'll admit at the time that I might not 100% know the reasons why, but I'll often find, I mean, we are the culmination of a lot of experience, and a lot of it we won't even remember how until we really start to think about it.
Yeah.
How certain ideas got into the brain and started bouncing around in the first place, right?
Yeah, and someone asks a question and you think about it, and then you think about it some more, and then you really understand why you're doing it. Or, the opposite happens too. You might be struggling with an aspect of forging or anything like that, and you just can't get it. And you might struggle with it for a year, and then one person says one thing, and it's just a slight variation of what dozens of people told you before, and then it just clicks in your brain. Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to talk to people and ask questions and have questions asked of you. And
yeah. And it is interesting what you said about that isolated farrier. When I was going to start this career, a gentleman came to me and said, it's the loneliest job on the planet. And I guess his farrier was a lone wolf who just didn't communicate with anybody, and all he dealt with were the horses all day long. And it's been interesting. It's like anything, it's what you make of it, but we really do have a great community to engage with.
Yeah.
At every level. It's so nice. I didn't experience it before the internet. I couldn't imagine learning some of the things that I have. I would not have been able to. Like, I wouldn't have had the Craig Tranka videos to watch and Roy Bloom smacking cow shit on an anvil.
We're so lucky that we can get exposure to all these different people and talk to people and meet people and learn all these different ways that wouldn't be possible without the internet, especially a time like this. If you wanted to learn something, you'd be waiting for the next clinic. And now, like, I can call somebody up and they can show you a video or send you a picture, or, you can pull off a shoe and see something. And it's like, I've never seen this before. And you can send that picture to 10 people and get, maybe 12 different answers, but at least you have a better idea of what you're looking at. Or, we can send pictures to vets and they can send us radiographs. Like, it's so great. And then you get to meet all these people and go, I've been lucky where I've been able to go down to clinics in the States and you meet more new people. Like, this has been the complete opposite of a lonely career, whereas like you just constantly meet new great people and, they'll open their truck. And if you're having a problem finding mentors, then you really need to look at yourself, because it has not been my experience at all. And there are people that are going to be grumpy and not want anything to do with you. And you can decide that they're a person worth pestering to get in their truck, or you can just find somebody else, because there's so many great people that will help you with any aspect, from the business to the shoemaking to trimming, anything you want. There's people out there willing to help you, and really good people.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting that the people at the very top, they're not really hiding secrets. They're willing to, if you ask.
Yeah, they're just willing to help you out. And like, even some of these people at the top will be like, well, if you're having problems, I'll come out in the truck with you and we'll go do that horse. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that. Like, but no, it's been great. And there's just so many good people in this industry that want to help. It's a double-edged sword too, though, because there are so many people. You can have these crazy ideas and you can always find somebody out there to validate your crazy ideas. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean what you're thinking is right. But yeah, there's so many great people to just get different ideas from.
For sure. Now, have you ever run into any situations where it seemed like a really bad situation at the time? Things had gone terribly, but in the end, even with just a bit of time, it turned out to be a really good experience. Have you ever had a situation like that?
For sure. Like, there's, you get yourself into messes, and I'm a big believer that you should learn from everything. So even if you really screw up, it's like, well, how am I going to learn from this? But there's always going to be horses that, you definitely did the wrong thing, and then you can either learn from that and try to improve it and things get better, or you can blame something else and then not, just ignore it and hope it doesn't happen again. But I'm a big believer in learning from those experiences. So when you do something bad, then try to find a way to turn it around and go from there. Like, I think we've all, sent horses in the wrong direction. It's whether you find a way to bring them back in the right direction or not, on whether you're going to keep that client and keep things going.
Right. What's next on your bucket list?
That's tough. I need to finish my CJF. I need to get going on that. I kind of, especially with COVID was tough because, we all got really busy, but everybody else was not very busy. As far as other people in our lives that aren't horseshoers weren't as busy. And I did have trouble staying motivated to keep learning through COVID. So I need to start practicing for that again. But generally, I'm more of a day by day. And if there's something really exciting I want to do, then I try to go do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to having you out on a forge night now.
Yeah, no, I need to come out. Yeah, I need to really get on.
Well, I'm in the same boat, so. Well, would you like to do the short answer questions?
Yeah, we could do that.
All right. This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tectorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions, but it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. Enjoy. Do you have a favorite book?
My favorite book overall would probably be the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And why is that?
I like to think about things that keep my brain from wandering back to horseshoeing. So that's pretty far from it. Like it's funny. It's just something different to keep you engaged.
Yep. Favorite brand of work boots?
I couldn't tell you. I go to the Work Authority because of my small stature. I have to wear women's work boots, so I buy whichever ones don't have, pink laces and little hearts sewn into them. So yeah, I just go to the Work Authority work boot store and try a couple pairs on.
Gotcha. In reference to your small stature, you often kind of tease yourself about it. I know Cody Gregory, Allie told him about the bench that you have around your work truck.
Yeah, I have a little step ladder.
He is fascinated by that concept.
Yeah, no, it's handy.
We'll have to post a picture of that working. I actually embrace that concept myself. Everything's set up for me, and then everybody who helps me is typically smaller than me. So we've got a little mobile bench on the Florida rig too. Basically, we're copying you.
That's all right.
Yeah, you were the inspiration. Favorite make of rasp?
I use the Excel Legend, the green Tang ones. They work pretty good. There's a couple weeks every summer where it's really dry and they don't work as well. And I always tell myself I'm going to buy a rasp for those couple weeks, but I just keep toughing it through and then it gets wet again. And those are the rasps I like.
Away you go. Do you have a dream Farrier rig?
I'm going to switch to a trailer because I'd like to be able to leave all my tools. I really like Jason Thompson's rig. It's pretty handy. You can walk in, similar to yours. But I'm not overly picky. Like my rig right now is pretty cobbled together and loaded with stuff. But yeah, I would like something a little easier to set up and be able to leave my tools behind.
Right. Do you have a favorite rounding hammer?
Right now, I'm using, I think it's a Gym Pour, but I switch it around a bit.
Yeah. Favorite pastime after work?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I usually go home and do some projects around the house. But yeah, I'm an avid hobbyist, so I'll pick a hobby and do it for a couple weeks and then get tired of it and go on to a new hobby. So
yep, that's me too. Get all the things required too.
Yeah.
And then
like, I'm done with this.
Yep. Favorite brand of keg shoe?
I generally use Kirkhart SSPs and then clip them at the horse. This summer, I started using pre-clipped Heinz, the DFs, but yeah, generally Kirkhart's for the show horses. I mean, for the race horses, I usually use the Victory plates.
Okay. Leather or synthetic pads?
For the most part, I use leather because I do still have a number of backyard clients that don't have the money. I might put rubber pads on if I'm, helping them out, but mostly leather.
Okay. Favorite type of horse to work on?
Even though I work on mostly off-track thoroughbreds, they can be very frustrating. So I do like, the warm bloods that have nice feet that are much easier to approach. But I mean, as long as they all pay the same, then I'm more or less happy. I'm not going to be too picky.
Okay. We did have this discussion about how you do tend to work on quite a few of the off-the-track ones, but you already have a bit of this relationship with them from before and a better understanding, whereas I often feel like because I didn't work with them, I don't get them as well. You
have to keep in mind that racehorses are used to, it's a negative way, but very military lifestyle. 7 days a week, someone comes in at, 5 in the morning, feeds them breakfast, ties them to the wall, mucks their stall. Then they go out and train, then they walk, then they go back to their stall and they spend most of the day, and they do that every day. Most people at the racetrack are pretty good horsemen, like anything else. The horses don't get away with a ton. There's going to be bad horses, and you're dealing with stallions and mares that are in close proximity to each other all the time, but they don't get away with much. The problem is when they get off the track, they often go to a farm where they're a bit scared of it because it's wild, because it just came from the racetrack and it's being fed a ton of food, and all of a sudden his life is upside down, and they just kind of start setting this horse up for failure. So they're scared of him, so they kick him outside in a big field, and he hasn't been turned out in a field that big since he was 1 year old. Then they try to ride him, but they can't ride him, so they cut his grain because he's crazy, and nobody's touched his feet, even up until he left the racetrack. They're done every 3 to 4 weeks there. But once the horse is finished, they have to find somewhere for him to go. So they're probably not, high on the list to get their feet done. So now they got a job that was made to last for 3 weeks, that's been on there for 6 weeks, and then he's at the farm, turned out, and now he's at 9 weeks. And they expect you to, get a shoe back on after he's ripped them both off. Mm-hmm. A lot of people get these off-track racehorses and they're convinced because he came off the track that he's, a rescue and he can't be disciplined at all. So you just have everything going against you. So asking that owner to leave, throwing the chain over the nose definitely helps with that. And sometimes they're just going to be a little bit crazy until they, get their life back together, because it's...
Get used to the new routine.
It's a big, change for them. It's pretty... traumatizing for them, I would imagine, to go from the racetrack life to, living in a show barn.
No kidding. Thank you for that perspective. That is a lot I haven't thought of.
I think racetrack farriers get a bad rap because we see their work, at 6 weeks, and it's not looking good. And this is a horse that's generally past his usefulness. Like, he's ready to retire and move on to the next life. So he's, not getting brand new shoes to, get given away to somebody or sold for $500. But the racetrack farriers have a very specific job, and that's to get to the next race, which is a bit similar to when you're shoeing the higher end show horses. You need to get to that next show at all costs. But racetrack, it's even more so. Your only goal is to make the next 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks after he runs, he might get claimed, he might get sold, he might get shipped down to the States. You might never see that horse again. Your goal is not to have nice, pretty feet in 2 weeks. It's to have him sound and have him make it down the racetrack without cutting himself up or anything like that. So if you're still shooting him in 2 weeks and whatever it took to get there made a mess, then you're going to clean up that mess and you're going to glue shoes on or do whatever. And then your goal is now the next race, which is 2 to 3 weeks from now. Your goal is 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. You're not trying to set this horse up to have nice feet in 2 years from now, like you are with a show horse, because he's got a much longer expectancy on your books. You just need to get through to that next race. And that's what trainers are looking for. So if you think you're going to make all their feet look pretty and fix them all up, then people probably aren't going to use you because they want results now. And that's just...
Right.
The nature of the beast.
No, that makes sense. Do you have an ideal number of horses to shoot all around in one day?
All around in one day by myself, 4 is a pretty nice number if it's at one barn. Mm-hmm. Finding that ideal number every day is a different, story. But if you could do that by yourself, 4 horses a day, 4 days a week, and have Friday to fix up some headaches, I think you'd be...
Doing well.
Yeah.
What's your favorite anvil?
I like the Scott tapered heel, 100-pound.
Yeah. Favorite inspirational quote?
Just because you can't achieve perfection doesn't mean you should stop trying.
Yeah, that's a good one. Do you use an accounting software or invoicing software, or are you...
I use QuickBooks, yeah.
Do you? App that has most improved your work life?
Probably QuickBooks, I guess, because that's, a good way to... just manage everything, billing, all that stuff. You can do it on the fly. You can keep track of everything. You can look up the history of, what you've charged them and all that. So I would say that. To be honest, I would say Facebook helped me build my business to where it is as well. So
right. And that was my next question, your favorite social media platform.
Yeah, I would say Facebook is the best way for me. I know Instagram, people have a lot of luck with that, but I would say Facebook for me.
Yeah. Do you have injury insurance?
I have a self-injury insurance where we put money in a tax-free savings account every month, and then it just keeps gaining interest. For me, that made the most sense. And then I have health benefits through the HBPA and stuff, and then life insurance.
What do you use as your planner?
As my planner, I have to use a paper book. I need to see everything laid out.
Same here. I've tried the electronic ways, and
I just can't do it. I need to have that book and see the whole week there and all my notes and scribbles and
right. Yep. Favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
I'm usually more of a tough it out guy. Just go home and go to bed, and hopefully it won't hurt tomorrow. But the odd time I'll take some Tylenol or acetaminophen or something. But
now with the racetrack stuff, you've had quite a few injuries, haven't you?
Yeah, I've broken so many bones from the racetrack, and as unlucky as I was, I broke my arm. I have a big rod in there. I broke my collarbone, my orbital bone. I had the top of my ear partially ripped off one time. I've had hundreds and hundreds of stitches. None of them come back to haunt me.
Okay.
I was extremely fortunate to just walk away from all the accidents I had at the racetrack. So,
no kidding. I figured your body would be like a weather station. Tell you when the rain's coming.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty lucky.
That's good. Your favorite brand of jeans?
I wear the cheap Wranglers from Walmart because I don't seem to keep jeans in good shape for very long.
Okay. Do you have a favorite drink?
I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I'll drink the occasional beer or something. And then, throughout the day, I'll drink Gatorade or water. I'm pretty bad for drinking pop, so I'm trying to cut back on that. But yeah, I'm bad for drinking sugar drinks as a stress relief.
Okay. Favorite genre of music?
Mostly rock, I guess. I'll listen to pretty much anything, though. I'm not super picky on music.
Do you work out?
In the wintertime, yes. Since COVID, I've kind of fallen off that train. And then in the summertime, I'll go home and swim in the pool, but not anything serious as far as working out.
What would you have been if not a farrier?
That's tough. I used to always look back at all the time I spent at the racetrack and I could have gone to school to be a doctor and a lawyer and been way further ahead by now. So I'm not sure I would have had the mental capacity for either of those. Originally, I was going to go to school for computer animation, but I've tried lots of other careers, and I always end up back with the horses. So I think I'm stuck with it.
You're never getting out. And if you were going to be stuck with somebody under quarantine in their shop for about a month, who would it be?
Well, that's a tough one. It'd have to be someone that I could tolerate
Yep.
and get along with and learn something. I'd have to say you, Brian.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah, I'd have to say you.
Well, I'm not sure how much you'd learn off of me, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, as long as we have fun, then we're good.
Cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate that you drove all the way out here to do this.
No, this was great. It's an honor to be here.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.